Hey students, today we are doing a new project, and this project is called Beastly Pastels. With this project, you will be working with pastels and developing a portrait of an animal of your choice. First off, we're going to be gridding off a picture of your choice of this animal, using that grid to then draw the animal, then tracing onto another piece of paper, so therefore you've got really nice finished lines. And then what you're going to do is within those lines, you're then going to fill in with oil pastels and blend and push and mix those colors up to be able to get a realistic animal to the best of your ability. So here we go. Alright, now before I get into drawing or working with oil pastels, I have to pick a picture of the animal, and then I have to take that picture and put a grid on it, so therefore I can then draw it onto paper with the paper that has the grid on it. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to go into my classwork and I'm going to click on do assignment, and then right over here I have the grid set up. Then what I'm going to do is go to Google, and I'm going to choose a golden eagle's head. I specifically say golden eagle's head for Google Images because I want a really nice picture. I'm going to choose this one right here, and I'm going to click and drag the image, pull it into the tab, and then drop. Then I'm going to place the picture in the correct orientation by turning it at 90 degrees, bring it up to the corner, and then I'm going to stretch it from the corner. I'm not going to stretch it from the top or the bottom. I'm going to stretch it from the corner, so therefore it doesn't get distorted. Now I have this area that's still open, so I'm going to double click on the image, and then I'm going to crop the image. Hit enter, stretch it, and then that should almost fit. I'll crop just a little bit more, and then stretch. Get it to fit perfectly. And now I'm good. That's my image. But now the image is over the grid, and I need the grid to show through. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to hit Command or Control, depending on the device that you're using. I'm going to hold down, and I'm going to push the arrow down, and that's automatically going to push the grid over the picture of the animal. Now that I have my gridded picture, now I can start my grid on my paper and start drawing, and I'm going to get a really nice contour line drawing of my animal, ready, set to go with oil pastels. Now I've got my piece of rough draft paper. What I'm going to do is I am going to now make a 9 by 12 grid on here. So this paper is 12 by 18 inches, but I'm going to go 9 by 12 squares, but they're not going to be inches. This ruler is a little more than an inch, which is fine. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to lay down my ruler, and I'm going to set this edge here right on my line, and then draw a line. So I'm just going by the thickness of the ruler. That way it makes it really easy. I really don't need to do any measuring. It's just lining up my ruler and then drawing that straight edge. We want it to be as perfect as possible. Any imperfections can cause distortion in when my drawing. And that is one thing that I don't want. I need to make 12 of these. Now I need to go the other way. Do the exact same thing, line up my ruler around the edge. Nine times. Now that I have my grid, I've got my eagle picture. And now what I'm going to do, as you can see, some people like to number their grid. So this could be 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 9, and then go 12. That would be 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, 10, 11, 12. To where this square would be 1, 1, this square would be 1, 2, and etc. So now I can look at my eagle, and I'm going to start off with the beak. And I can see that my beak is on the bottom of the beak. The point of the beak is on 11, 5. So 11, 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, right here. And the beak literally starts about here. It's very, very close to my edge. And not quite in the middle of this line. It's more like right here. Curves down and curves back up. Leave it just like this, and then it follows right up and curves about right here. The bottom of the beak follows right on this line and then scoops up right at this corner. So what I'm doing is I'm looking at my picture and I'm following it line by line, square by square. Following every area, every section. I'm not worried about trying to draw an eagle. I'm worried about trying to draw lines inside this one specific square. Once I'm done, now I've got an eagle. Now that I've got my eagle all done, now it's time to trace it. Now I've got my tracing board to trace my eagle. So I got to turn my tracing board on, turn it up all the way. So I need to have my rough draft underneath my final to be able to see my lines clearly. One thing that you can see is I've got a lot of space on this side of my paper. I'm actually going to push an eagle over to this side of the paper, so that way I've got more room. I've got more room to work with over here on this side. The composition is going to look a lot nicer if I leave a little more room on the front of his face. When tracing, you want to trace as light as possible. The reason being is because we don't want your pencil line to show through the oil pastel. Alright, now that I have my eagle traced and I've got my final paper all set ready to go, now it's time to start adding in my oil pastels. And with oil pastels, remember, it's all about layering. Layer, 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 layer. So if I look at my eagle, I've got a lot of different browns in the feathers of the eagle, which is why I chose this box of oil pastels. I chose this box because I've got a huge variation of different browns. Nice, a dark brown to a true brown to a little bit of a clay color, a little bit of yellow, closer to a beige color. And with all of these variations of brown, I think I can get really, really close with my eagle on when I'm layering colors for the feathers. I also have this box to bring in some of the colors in the eye and in the beak, and also just some very cool variations that I can see within the feathers. So first off, I'm going to start with my background, and what I'm going to do is I'm going to apply a nice gradual color change, and I'm going to go with green, and I'm going to have it go green just to white. As I get close to the eagle, I'm going to keep the green away from the eagle, but I'm going to have that green kind of come across here, almost look like he is visually looking into that color change. Now I'm going to take a white and really mix it into that green, really trying to get that green to look as almost as it's clouded, getting it to blend and get that gradual change to be nice and smooth. And that's all really I want you to do with the background. I'm happy with that. Now I'm going to start moving on to the eagle and that first layer. Okay, with that first layer, I'm going to start off with a light color. I'm going to start off with this color. I can kind of see this color in some of the feathers. It's not very strong and it's not very prevalent, but I'm going to layer all of the feather work with this guy. I know some of you might be thinking, whoa, Mr. Ash, that's going to be a little yellow. And yes, I'm taking a chance with that. But when I'm going to cover it with my darker browns and my reddish clay brown, that's going to cover this pretty well. When laying oil pastels down, I can't lay down in just any format that I want. Like I said, I'm going to lay this down in all areas of the feathers, but I need to make sure that I'm laying it in the right direction. The feathers move in this direction, and then as it works down the head, it moves in this direction and then works down. This side works this way, and then when it hits this part, works that way. these feathers here work that way. So those are the directions that I really need to pay attention in placing them in the right direction. Now that I've got my first layer on there, now I can smear it, get it to work together. I've got quite a bit on there, which is not a bad thing. I want enough on there to where I can really control it and push it. Also, I'm making sure that I'm pushing in the same direction that I applied that oil pastel. I'm going to go ahead and place this color on the beak as well. The beak, there's some areas where the beak has a nice yellow tint to it, and then there's other areas where the beak turns into a beige, nice white. Alright, moving on to my second color. I'm going to move to this color and the feathers and start applying it in areas. And this is where the stroke of the oil pastels, I don't want to be kind of careless with that yellow. I was a little careless, which isn't a bad thing for my first layer. I was just trying to get a nice layer down. Now it's time for me to start paying attention and think more about individual feathers than the whole body. Now that I've got that layer down, I'm going to go ahead and smear it in. I don't want to smear it too hard to where I don't want to take away all of the texture. It's just more like I'm trying to blend it. Alright, done with my second layer. Now it's time to move on to a third layer, which I feel would be good clay color, reddish brown color. I need to be careful with this just because I know that red is going to be very aggressive. And I can always tone it down. I can always come back in with this guy, which I'm sure I will. But again, being aware. Again, I'm really going for that top layer to be highly texturized. So when I smear, it's going to be even less than how I smeared last time. Last time I barely smeared with any pressure on my finger. This time it's going to be even less. At this point in time, you really need to think about layer before sections. And what I mean by sections is right here in my eagle, it's a very, very dark section, which I'm eventually going to get to. I'm eventually going to layer a very dark area right there. And some of you might be thinking, well, why are you putting the red there when you're going to go dark? Well, it's a lot easier to transition from one area to the other when you worked in layers versus sections. Because those feathers really turn from dark, and then they've kind of slowly, in areas, slowly turned from dark to that brown. And it gives me the ability to blend. Makes my life a lot easier in the long run. Now I can start thinking a little bit about sections. So here in the lower neck area, we have a darker brown. And so I'm going to start off with this dark brown first, and then I'm going to go even darker after that. But I'm not going to apply this in this area, because I don't want it to be that darker brown. So again, I'm paying attention to the direction, the amount, and the area right now. Okay, now that I have that brown in there, now I'm going to, again, smear, kind of get some of these areas to blend into what I already have. I'm not pushing too hard because I definitely don't want to take that darker value away. This area down here definitely gets lighter on my eagle, so I definitely did not put as much on the chest of the eagle there. Smaller areas, you definitely have to just be careful with your finger. You definitely still want to keep control. You definitely don't want to make a hot mess with it. Now this area is very choppy with my eagle. I have areas where feathers are overlapping other feathers and creating some really cool shadows, which gives some high contrast areas of value in my eagle. So I'm trying to start the process of catching those shadows. All right, now that I've got that layer done, now it's all about working in layers and just slowly developing between all of my colors on the feathers. So obviously right here with my darkest color, I'm going to keep developing the feathers, blending it with this brown. Up here, I'm going to take it back and forth between these three right here to really control the variations of feather to feather. So here I'll show you an example of this, and show you an example of that. Alright, now I'm going to go ahead and do the rest of the feathers. And basically, again, what I'm doing is I'm just working on those variations, trying to get the blend highly texturized and really getting those shadows in there. So once I'm done with the feathers, I'll show you what it looks like. Alright, now that I've developed my feathers, I'm still not done yet. I'm sure there'll be areas as I continue to look at it and continue to develop the rest of the eagle. I'm probably going to go back in and probably just add in a few more areas here and there. I can already tell I want to add in a little more yellowish beige up here and some of the top of the feathers. But other than that, I'm fairly happy with it. So now I'm going to show you some tricks on what to do with this area. Again, it's the same type of idea. It's not like I'm going to go right in with black on this one. I'm going to slowly bring it forth. In fact, I can already tell there's a little bit of blue that I'm going to add in about right here. Same thing with this. This is a nice white, but I'm not just going to leave it paper white. I'm going to place white oil pastel on there and get it to gradually fade from a grayish to a white. And then the eye, I've got to be really careful. This is a very small area that I have to be very precise at. So I'm going to start off with the beak. I'm going to show you a few tricks with the beak. I'm going to go ahead and start with a white here because it's really nice and light right here. And I already have that yellow beige, and I really want to start toning it down. Now remember what I told you about the pencil and how light you need to go with the pencil? Well, you can see my pencil line is right there. And there's no way of cutting that out now. So learn from my mistakes. And remember, draw lightly. What up, man? Sweet. Interesting meeting last night.
I didn't get home until shit off after 7.
She told us. One time Sarah had her mic on and the kids screamed in the back. Everybody just started laughing just because.
Oh yeah. Dude, that is sweet, bro.
Thank you.
Where'd you learn to draw like that?
This is, I would say, I learned this in college.
Really?
This concept of layering. Yeah.
You just have a. It's funny how I wish I could. There was kids in my class. They could just grab a pencil real quick. I mean, they could just visually see something and they could do it. I don't.
Yeah.
I mean, I wish I had.
Alright, one trick that I'm going to show you is getting into some of these smaller areas, wrapping your pencil up with a piece of paper towel. It allows you the ability to get in and to push some of those oil pastels in those tight areas and keeping it nice and clean. I wouldn't rely on a giant finger to be able to get inside some of those tight spaces. So alright, so here I have my eagle. I've worked on the beak and layered the beak and blended the beak. I've worked on the feathers to bring them out a little more, really focused on the eye, but I want to show you what I'm looking at in here because it's a different texture. So I've got like gray in here, and I've already kind of like established it quite a bit, but I'm gonna work at that texture right here. I'm gonna start off with a gray, and I'm going to just kind of dot it in there. I'm not going to blend this. I'm not going to push it anymore. I need to keep the texture for what it is. They're almost dot-like textures, or dot-like texture. So I really need to keep it in there. As it works away from the eye, it definitely fades away. Looks into a white. So I have the background blended from the gray to the white, but now it's like I need to blend the texture from a rougher texture to a smoother texture. And take my black, and it's darker. There's a few dark spots, and I'm barely touching it with the black. I don't want to go too much too fast. And I want this black to be able to blend in with the textured gray as well. Very slowly. Barely touching. Alright guys, again, this is a time for you to learn a drawing technique that's going to simplify things for you. And then also taking your oil pastel techniques and vamping them up a little bit. Really focusing on an actual object. Focus on layering and direction. Guys, have fun with this. Good luck. Guys, I really hope you enjoyed this project. This is one of my favorites just because this gives you the ability and the know-how to get past a lot of these drawing obstacles and gives the possibility of making average drawers really good ones by using that grid. Hope you enjoy it, guys. Do your best, follow those steps, follow the instructions, and I'm sure you'll come up with something that you're really pleased with.